Hello, and welcome everyone to our last talk here for the Pixel Jam that will be uh, live, that we go live tomorrow. So here we are with Alize Rey. Alize Rey is an amazing person that has a lot to teach us. So please, Alize, introduce us what you're going to talk about today.
Hey, so hi, I'm Alize. I first apologize for my accent because, well, as you might notice, English is not my first language. It's actually French, but I'm going to do my best not to make too many mistakes. So today we mainly going to talk about finding a good scope for a small prototype because a game jam is a really short time and you have to make a find scope that fits as much as possible the needs of this production.
That's amazing. Just wanted to make sure. I think I'm hearing you a little bit low on volume. Can you please check
Okay.
your?
Sure. Hold on, I'm just gonna.
No worries, no worries. We just started, so
Is it better?
I think it's not working at the moment. Well, she helps us with that. I just wanted to mention that please, everyone that has subscribed and sent their information to the Pixel Game Jam, don't forget to check your emails and check your Discord so that you can confirm that you are inside of the uh, Discord that we will be working with for the Pixel Game Jam. If you haven't received an email or you are not seeing anything inside of the Discord, please let us know. Write to the email of Women in GameX, and we will help you out as soon as possible. So I think you're ready.
Yeah, is it better? Can you hear me
Yeah,
better?
a little bit better. Yeah.
A little bit?
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's okay, awesome.
don't
Sorry.
worry. Technical issues happen all the time, so don't worry. Well, please talk to us about what is your experience, where have you worked, what have you done, so we can understand better where you're coming from and all this feedback is coming from.
Sure. So, well, I'm gonna talk a bit about myself. So, as I said, I'm French. So, I'm born in France. I grew up in Costa Rica and made my career in Canada. In Canada, I had the chance to work for over 8 years into the AAA industry. So I've worked at Ubisoft, I've worked at Eidos, in and other some indies, like 2 or 3 indies extra. But my main experience is known for the last game, Marvel Garden of the Galaxy, where I was in charge mainly to create all the narrative system. So I was a technical level designer, and my main job was to make sure the game and the NPCs will feel as natural as possible. Now I'm currently in Mexico, where I own my own company with my partners, and we have our own games and own production. So yeah, lots of my feedback and my tips comes from what I've been able to learn in AAA industry, and I think also from the indie industry.
That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you, what's the deal with the scope of a project specifically for game jams? Why is it important to have a really fine scope?
So game jams is like a glimpse of what a full production would be. It means that you have just a few days to create a product from the beginning to the end. And I mean, it's not going to be perfect because in that amount of time, it's impossible to deliver something perfect, and no game is perfect. But the idea is to get as close as possible of what you want to do, of the idea you have. So the scope has to be thought a lot before starting to make sure you're going to be able to get as close as possible to the end of your ideas. And so today we're going to be able to talk a bit about what do you have to think, about what do you have to look at to make sure you don't go with something too big that is going to be overwhelming and at the end, well, it's stressing, which is not the point of the game jam.
Exactly. We're here to have fun, and one way to do that is to make sure that we have everything ready so that we don't stress at the last moments of we didn't think about this, we didn't thought that this could be important, and that helps us when we define our scope, as you said. So that's pretty
Exactly.
interesting, because most people, and mainly I think that everyone that works in the industry and the ones that are starting to work in the industry do the same mistakes. Sometimes a lot, and sometimes it doesn't happen. But we tend to overscope things. We tend to say, "Yeah, we can do this. Doesn't matter. We will not sleep. It's easier. I've done it several times," and then you don't think about the issues that this can come on other areas. For example, I don't know if you want to add another character. Well, it's just not programming. It's animation. It's modeling. It's rigging. It's texturing. It's balancing. It's a lot of stuff that you have to understand in order to like take the decision of saying, yeah, this will go into my game. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what's about what can you tell us about brainstorming, or how can you start the scope or to define the scope for a video game in specifically for a game jam?
Okay, so there is few different steps. There is not an exact way of doing it simply because it's organic and it really depends on what do you have on your team. The first thing that everybody has to do is a brainstorm. So a brainstorm is not, it has to have specific rules as well. So what is a brainstorm? First of all, you need to define the time and say, okay, so we're gonna do a brainstorm for an hour, and after this hour, it's over. We're just gonna look at the ideas and work with it. It's really important to don't criticize any idea at the brainstorm phase. It's really when you can completely go out of your mind and think everything and go crazy. And we're gonna do an online MMO real time with weather, and I mean everything is acceptable at this point of the production.
Do you mean like everything, or it doesn't matter? Like,
Everything should be accepted at this time because even a big idea which is for sure not doable can bring something else that is going to be what you're looking for. So it's really important to don't criticize any idea at this time. You have to encourage a wide variety of ideas so you can go from something to something completely different that has nothing to do with the theme. And I mean, it's fine because, as we say, we are trying to build some sort of free space, judgment free space, where nobody's going to judge you on anything. Like, there is no stupid ideas. And that's one of the things because sometimes a stupid idea, if you change just like something a little bit, it's a genius idea. And that's how all genius ideas start. So there is no limits at this point. You don't have to be afraid to be unrealistic, to be unconventional, and you have to jump on each other's idea. Because just someone say, "Oh, I saw this game like this, and this," and someone say, "Oh, I actually always thought about doing this type of mechanic, but maybe we can change this." And it reminds me that movie or that game that has this really interesting story um, that is really going to push you be able to go out of your comfort zone and see stuff differently. At this point, there is, I mean, no point in video game. There is no truth or false. There is no right or wrong. It's really about emptying your brain on paper as a group. And it's a really important exercise. It's also going to be interesting to learn how to work as a group. So, how can we start to learn to communicate just by building a list together? Even if there is no structure, even there's no limits, it's a good start.
That's awesome. Uh, Before we jump to the next like point of this talk, I wanted to ask you, uh, do you have a process for brainstorming? For example, I don't know if you have a special process that you'd like to do before like brainstorming. I don't know if you can tell us about it. It would be nice.
I think, yeah, I can tell you about my process. It's not the process that works for everyone. Everyone has a different, really, really different process. And even if you can look online, there is probably dozens of different ways to do brainstorming. You just have to find the one that works for you. Personally, I'm really visual and artistically sensitive person. So I would need images. Just seeing a structure, just seeing a color, type of material is gonna give me an idea about something. Like I can see a stairs and be like, oh my god, this could definitely the shape talks to me. Level design wise, it could be really interesting. So I personally start with a board on Pinterest, even if it's for mechanics, because I mean, even if I'm just going to do a look on Pinterest of a picture of the game I'm looking for, it's going to be for me my reference to a game I want to have in my ideas. I like to do lists as well, just on paper with a pen, because writing with a pen is actually it's sort of proven that when you write with a pen, you are more creative than typing on a computer. So I really like try to disconnect and have the full time writing my ideas, no phone, no distraction, and focus on just jumping on idea from idea. That's how I personally do it. Even this team is just okay. So everybody is gonna write 10 ideas, or we're just going to give us 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes we're going to write a lot of ideas, and then we share them, and we're going to realize that maybe 3 4 ideas are already in common based on the theme and based on how you had already thought, but what you will be comfortable to do as a team.
That That's pretty interesting. Maybe I think that a lot of people will identify with maybe something surprising that you said is that you can find references like on Pinterest and not just for art, for the art side. You can do it for mechanics, you can do it for something that has to do with programming. It just doesn't have to be art, it can be anything, and you can make a Pinterest board out of basically almost anything.
Exactly. When we say programming, it's more like mechanics. So I'm just going to look for a GIF or a picture, specific picture of the game that I know. When I see the picture, I know what I wanted to look at in this picture. I will remember. So it's really organic way to do it.
That's pretty interesting. So if you want, we can go to the next point of
Sure. So the next point, now we have all our ideas and it's awesome, and we have crazy good idea. We have a lot of undoable stuff mainly, but lots of ideas. So the first thing that you're gonna need to do is narrow it down. How do you narrow it down? You talk with your team and you're like, I like this idea because this and this and this. This one, can we keep it? And then you go to the next idea and you're like, yeah, thinking about this one again. I'm not so sure about it. What do you think? Yeah, no, I don't know either. So you just go to the next one, and slowly you're gonna get less and less and less ideas, and you're gonna have a shorter list of what you guys want to do. And then comes the next step, which is making concessions. You need to make concessions because you're not going to be able to do everything. So you're going to have to focus on what's the most important for you. What do you want to express in this game? If it's the mechanic, is it the art, is it the story? You're going to have to find a way to highlight this specific feature, and you're going to need to make concessions. So the concession is between what you want to do and what you can do. The reality is, how do you define what you can really, really do? Well, it's going to be based on your resources, and your resources in this case is your team. So the first thing is to define. Okay, so we have an artist, we have a programmer, we have a designer that is going to be as a integrator as well, and but our artist is a 2D artist, and we have someone for music. So what happens? Are you the first thing that you know is that you're not going to do a 3D game. So you have to think about something. Maybe you really want to do a 3D game, but if you just try to do a 3D game when there is no person that can do that, it's going to be really, really painful for the person in charge trying at their first game jam, learning 3D and trying to make a game. It's going to be really heavy. So it's really taking account the skills of your team. If your programmer is really comfortable with UI based game because he's been working in UI mainly, in this case, that's going to be part of what you have to think about. Okay, so we need to make a UI based game and it has to be in 2D. So from there, you got to think inside this constraint. And that's where the most creative ideas come. That's where really creative mechanics come. It's when you're locked into some sort of tricky position gameplay wise and you have to find ways to go into it by finding creative mechanics. So it's accept your flaws as a team and be creative within your limits. Make that your flaws are actually your strength. If you have a sound designer, you're gonna have a crazy cool sound, and why don't you make a music-based game, for example? So use your team as better as possible. What else can I say? Always keep in mind the player engagement and the fun part of the game. We are doing game. We are doing interactive actions. We are doing when we talk about interaction, it means that we are creating something that talks directly to the user through different aspects, through the controls, through the art, through the story, through the music. So, but we need to never forget that the fun is what gonna keep the player happy. The fun is what gonna make people want to play your game and keep playing it. So
That's
I think it should be a focus.
that's pretty interesting because I think this is the part of scaling it down. It's one of the hardest things to do because everybody wants to do what they thought is interesting or fun or the best thing for the game, no? And not all of these ideas are compatible. So it's important to understand that maybe all of my ideas will not be done, but how can you like I don't know, how can you come into an agreement with people that want to do and they are pushing the ideas as hard as you? That I think
Mm-hmm.
for me that's the hardest thing to do, like to compromise everyone and just doesn't feel like this person is just compromising everything because this person is not compromising anything, and we are finishing we are working on a game based on these ideas only. I think that's the hardest part. How can you how do you tackle these issues?
So these issues comes with communication. With like the only way to solve it is that the first key to all of this is communication. It's at some point, so it's like, yeah, but I want to have everything in 3D, and it's at some point you have to understand that your expectation have to enter in the amount of time. It's really important that even after the brainstorming to start saying, okay, who do we have in the team? What can we do? Until where can we go? Approximately how many assets? Can we do animations? Do we know how to do animations? Well, maybe you can try doing simple animation, but you cannot get your expectation too high because, yeah, once again, it's a glimpse of a production. It's not even what any project, even small projects, which are general at least a month, have a week of pre production. We are talking a week of brainstorming, a week of scaling those, etc. This part in the game jam, you will have maybe 2 hours, 3 hours to do it. So it's a process that has to be quick, and everything has to be done based on the end product, on how the end product is going to look for everyone, and not how you want it to look like. It's really hard because it's really communication, but at the end of the day, I think that, as you explained, well, I feel like you're pushing your idea for this game, but as you see, we don't have the resources. So if you really want to do this idea, what are your solutions to get there? Where are we cutting to get there? Because everything that you do is gonna take time for something else. So everything has to be somehow taken into account. And I think that's why Isabel had an awesome talk about production, pre-production, and uh, every step of it, how to start and how to think about it. The reality too is, I mean, I can now with experience, it's sure that I can say, see a prototype, or you can tell me about a mechanic, and I can tell you, yeah, it's going to take an animator, VFX artist, a sound, half time of a designer, because we've been doing this so much. So you have to accept, through this process you're going to make mistakes as well. You're going to be like, hey, so I really thought I could do those two mechanics, but I can do only one. And the problem is that with this mechanic, the game is not playable. It's only this mechanic. So in this case, one of the main solution will be as well to, if you share expectation from the beginning, if there's always plan extra time. You have to always plan extra time. If you say, oh, this feature is going to take me 2 hours to program, count 3 hours, because it's not going to be, especially in the game jam where you normally are still learning a bit to use the engine and tools and getting a bit out of your comfort zone, doing new stuff that you never had a chance to approach. Leave some time for yourself to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Some really, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
don't worry. I just wanted to say that I think that you said something that struck me like very that it's very important. Sharing your expectations. I think nobody does this, and maybe some of your teammates are just trying to have fun or learning to do a game jam, and maybe your expectations is to make a prototype so that you can see if this prototype can have some something good in it that you can still be working after the game jam. And not everyone will be on the same page as you, and that can be frustrating for you and frustrating for your team because maybe you are uh, pressuring them to finish something at some type of quality, or you envision the game differently, even though you all of you came down to one idea. Everybody has a perception of that concept differently, so it's very important that you guys like sit down and have that talk of what are your expectations of this? What are you envisioning in this project? How does it look in your head when we finish it and deliver it on Sunday? And this will be eye-opening for everyone because maybe someone is thinking something super complicated and someone is thinking something super simple, and those type of things can become a problem when you are producing your game.
Exactly.
Okay?
So I can give you some tips that are going to help you actually scale it down and taking some part of the right decision. Everything I say, it's always my personal opinion, what works the best for me in my career. And I've been a huge game jam fan. I've done like 6, 7 game jams because I used to love it. I don't have the time anymore, but I always have so much fun. And those are some of the stuff I wish I knew before. For example, focus on one mechanic. Like you have one super polished mechanic with nice animation. You even took the time to do some VFX. The mechanics look super good, and your game is based around these mechanics. A lot of mistakes is that, oh, we're gonna have a gun, and we're gonna have a special attack, and then we're gonna have melee, and then we're gonna have a range attack. But at the end, you have so little time that you're not going to be able to do them well. So you're going to have three mechanics that don't comply with anything you're trying to prove, rather than have one that it's super polished, that you have time to work on it again, to debug and make sure it works fine. So that's one thing. Another thing is that you're not making a full game. What you're making, you're not gonna have the time to make a full game. If you try to make a full complete game with menus, level one, level two, level three, death screen, settings, etc., you're gonna end up with a nice skeleton of a game, but you're not gonna have time to integrate everything that the artist has done. You're gonna not gonna have time to make it look everything well. So as same as the mechanic, I think it's better to work on one level of the game that where you completely understand what you're trying to do, and that is polished. So you have nice art, you have nice music, you have nice mechanic. Yeah, maybe you don't have the setting menus, and when you're dead, it just says you're dead. But um, at least the game and what you're trying to prove is mostly complete, and that's going to be able to make you valid a whole concept, even if your idea is to show it to a publisher, even if your idea is to just have fun. At the end of the day, with one polished level rather than the whole game skeleton, you're going to have a much more valuable product.
And you're going to learn from your teammates and you and yourself, because you're going to be able to identify how much self control you have, because it's easy to say we can add this and we can better this, and then we add another character, and it's easier to upskill the project, even though you compromise to making this small thing. It comes to a moment when you see the project, and you say like, how, when did it get this big? So it's important to understand that a game skeleton in a small project, a very very small project, it's the way to go in game jams. And as Alice said, one level, very polished, very complete, that you can play from start to finish, that you tested, that doesn't have any bugs, that can be played several times over and over again without breaking. I think it's a solid way to finish and have fun in a game jam.
Even if it's a 5 minute experience, even if it's a 5 minute experience, it's better to have a nice 5 minute experience than a 10 minute experience with bugs. And I mean, the longer, the more bugs possibility you have to create as well. So just focus on a small part. Just make sure you can do it and have fun doing it, and you're going to be able to improve it. Like, okay, well, this box I used a placeholder, but now we see that I have more time, so I'm just going to do a box that looks more beautiful. I'm going to improve the animation. I'm going to improve the environments rather than adding more and more. So you're going to end up with a way more polish and progress.
That's so true. And it just doesn't apply to game jams. It applies to general game development. So
To
take this
life.
to heart, to life. Yeah. Okay,
So,
Alice. So
yes.
what would be the next step in this process?
So there is more step to that. So after you know what you're gonna do, you have an idea. Okay, we're gonna do a platformer with a 2.5D camera view, and so our fun is gonna be based on um, jumping. It's like a jumping puzzle, a parkour stuff where you have to do on a specific timer, and you have some traps. Let's say that's the game we're doing. So you're gonna have to define the priority on the minimum viable product. What is the minimum you need to do to validate this concept? So you're gonna need a character. Okay, we need a character. We need a level, We need some as a character. We gonna be able to move. We need gonna be able. Sorry, not English. We gonna need some guidance um, places to determine the visual language, so the person know exactly where they can jump or know exactly when they see something high. They just by looking at it, they will know, can I jump it or can I not jump it? So they will not try to jump if they see right away it's not doable. It's just to define all those bases, and you have to take that time to organize. This is really important, even if at the beginning of what you think is taking you time, is like, well, we're not doing the game, at the end is going to save you so much time because you're going to be much more organized. So define what is the minimum viable product. Even if we don't have the beautiful background, well, it's functional. So define what is the most important. Then you're gonna have to talk about the pipeline and how you're gonna communicate. So the pipeline is like, okay, the way we're gonna do it is I'm gonna start with design. I'm gonna be integrating this. I'm gonna be doing this. You start designing this feature at the same time, and the artist is gonna start on the character, and then he's gonna do the animation, and then we're gonna program the animation. So start thinking on how you're gonna do it. What software you're gonna use? Are you gonna use are you gonna use GitHub? Are you gonna use the Unity collab tool? Are you so hot you can set up Perforce in an hour? It's up to you. I mean, you just have to discuss it. But I don't know. I mean, everybody is. There's some really cool people outside.
Setting one in 1 hour perforce. I mean, like,
So I
if
don't know. It
someone
can happen.
if someone here that's hearing this can do that, please let me know.
Please
Because
contact us. But that's an example, and be like, okay, so we're gonna be communicated in Discord, or we're gonna be communicated on Slack. This channel, we're gonna share that information. In this channel, that information. We're gonna set a meeting 3 times per day just to talk to each other and see how we're going, if we're still on the line, if we need to change the priorities. You have to take the time to communicate well as well. I mean, at my first game jam, we were three doing the movements of the character. Like we were three people working on the same thing. And well, obviously, it was my first game jam, but that's why we need to learn. And if we have talked to each other, our game would have been way more. Well, it would have been finished. Well, that's so that's part of the thing. You need to define this and communicate. And as I said before, you need to plan time for the unexpected. And if the unexpected don't come, no worry, you're gonna find a way for sure to use that time to improve the experience for sure. So
it's
yeah,
better to
that's some
it's
of
better
the
to
issues.
finish early than to finish like at the very last time. If you finish early, you can do whatever you want. You can add things, you can test things, you can do whatever you want with that free time. You can go and take a coffee and I don't know, watch the channel called uh
Oh, actually, that's something. Sorry, that's something that you say that remind me. Make
yeah.
sure that you try to build your game few times per day. Make
Yes.
sure to try to build your day as much as possible, because what is going to happen is that you're going to get to the last 3 hours before delivering, and you're going to be okay. Now we have to build the game, and it's not working. And before you find what is not working, rather than every time you build it and okay, it's not working, what happens? So we've got this, and this. It has to be one of those three that broke the game, for example. If you do that the last time, anything that you've bought into the whole game can be what broke the game.
Yeah, and you don't have to make a build with almost everything ready. Like if you have the character controller ready, just put a plane on Unity and build it and see how it runs, see how it works, and it's just as easy as that. If you have the collisions ready, You can put several. It doesn't have to be like how the game was envisioned. It's just for you to test that what you're doing it's working and it's compatible with the build. It happens sometimes that when you are building, everything works in the editor like smooth and perfect and pristine, and once you build, it's like everything is like magenta, it's not working, the shaders are not compiling, and a lot of stuff can go wrong. But if you build first, you will be able to see this and fix it in the early stages.
Yeah, and I think we all talk from experience.
Yeah.
We all talk
Yeah.
from experience.
Yep.
So those are mainly what the way I would work if I was doing a game jam today. I can give you also some extra tip that I've been learning through the years and by learning in production. Making a game is hard. Making a game is not something easy. Why do you think various companies with over 10,000 people working on it and looking for bugs, and even with this, they're not able to deliver a really great product or not what they expected? Because building a game is hard. We are talking about art, we are talking about music, we're talking about tech when we talk about engines, and we're talking about so much compatibility, so much things that can go wrong and it will go wrong. But that's the reality of what we do, and that's why I say making a game is hard. So you have to be nice to yourself. It's not like, oh well, everybody can do it and that's like this. No, it's really hard. Even myself, if I would be doing a game jam today, even with experience, I'm gonna hit a lot of issues. I'm gonna hit a lot of uh, technical issues, performance issues, bugs, because that's the reality of making a game. There's no one that's gonna make a full game and there's gonna be no bug at all. It's That's what we do. Um, so mixing everything together, of course, it's gonna generate bugs, and you don't have to beat yourself for this because it's really part of the process. Um, like I said before, too, a game jam is a glimpse of a full production in a really short time, and so it's extra hard when making a game is hard when we have time. You're making a game with less time, so that's why finding your scope and don't go too big is gonna make you be able to go through the full production, because that's what the game jam is a full production in a short time. After that, what I will say, do not panic. There is nothing bad that can happen. It's not a competition, and even if it was a competition, it's not an open heart surgery, so nothing bad can happen. And really, in game jam, everything it will have no bad consequences. Everything you do, even if you fail, even if you're so sad because you couldn't build your game at the end, so you couldn't show it. And I mean, it might happen because it's, as I said again, making games hard. It's There is no real consequences except you have learned more, and the next time you have to do the same thing, you're gonna be more and more and more comfortable. And just being making comfortable doesn't mean it's gonna be easier, because it's still gonna be hard, but you're gonna feel way less stress, and you're gonna know that it's part of the process and it's normal to to work well, to feel like this when you work in the industry.
That's completely true. When you are working in the industry, like as a professional, there's little to none room for mistakes. They happen, but you have to be prepared to be able to solve them. I think when you're working on a personal project that has no pressure of economic issue, or you don't have a deadline to press to send it, as well as in the jams, because we have deadlines, but it doesn't mean that you have to, like, if something happens to you if you don't deliver it, uh, this I think this can help you to like experience the ambient or simulate something that could happen in the industry, and you can make mistakes. I think that game jams and personal projects are the best places to make mistakes, because you can enter another game jam and you will be learning, and once you don't think about it, there will be like 10 game jams in your experience, and you will be very very good at what you do. So that's pretty true what you're saying. I think it resonates with what we
Yeah, and
do
I
with
mean,
us.
if you do panic, which is gonna happen as well, all the mentors are here for that too. It's like, I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. Okay, what's happening? Like, take bits by bits, problems by problems, see how it can fix. Um, Everything is not gonna go as planned, so you're gonna need to adapt. You're gonna need to accept that what you thought at the beginning is not gonna be the same. It's like, oh, so we won't have, like I was talking about having a box, right? So it's like, oh, I won't have the time to make the art for the box. Just grab pictures in Google. Just grab picture and place it there. And I mean, it's not gonna be perfect, but at least you're gonna have an idea of what you're trying to express. And that's why you should be proud just of doing it. Just be proud of, like, oh, I took the time to do it, to learn and to grow as a person and as a professional. Just that is huge. And yeah, adapt, accept to adapt, accept that the idea is that even if everything is on fire, is like, what can we do that is actually gonna look good, even if the rest is on fire, even if we just end up with just a small bit. At least, how can we make this small bit a bit
That's a
bigger,
win-win
right? So
situation.
it's every win, every quick win you can have. That's what you're gonna go for.
Yeah, something that I can share from experience, and maybe this will help someone in the game jam, is that it's easy for us to find issues and go with the team. Hey, I found this issue. One exercise that I like to do is that if I find an issue, I will have to wait, or if I can wait, I will go to the team with at least one solution or one idea of how can we fix this. This way, we are like making the energy like move. You don't get stuck in the we have an issue, we have an issue. Okay, we have an issue, but I think that we can fix it, or we can bypass it, or we can parch it, or we can whatever if we do this thing. It can be like cutting some uh, part of the game. Maybe something that is not critical for the game is making a lot of more issues than uh, adding to the experience. I don't know. Maybe the clouds in the game are making the character tremble and don't move. And if you delete them, everything works. You don't have time to know or to find how is that happening, because it's bonkers, and you don't say like, how is this happening? But you found the solution. We can delete the clouds and maybe put a GIF or something, an image that will not look maybe as good as the clouds that you were making, but it will help the game get to the release state faster. So those types of things, like finding an issue and coming with a solution, it's always the best thing to do. So we are having some questions in the chat. I think if you guys have a question for Alice, now's the time to keep adding them. We will be talking the rest of the time, so feel free to pitch in. We have a question from Taira Flores. She says, can some friend not in the team helps us with our testing? As a game jam, we encourage for you and your team to make everything within your team. However, this doesn't mean that someone from outside can give you an idea or test your game if you don't have time to do it. However, these people will not be able to enter the game jam because we're like almost starting. So please keep in mind that If you want to credit them, especially in your build, that can be done. But the making of the game should be done completely inside of the team that is registered on the Pixel Game Jam. We have another question from Daniel Trejo. Do you have any strategies on what to do when you realize the scope is too big during the second day of the game jam?
So it's a good, realistic question, and that's why scope is so important. So, well, my first answer is to adapt, but my bigger answer is actually to go through the whole scope of the game and define really what is the most important, what is the minimum viable product. So even if at the end of the day your character just jumps and runs and collect some stuff and there is no boss or there is no enemy, well, at least you're gonna have something to show. You're gonna have the art, you're gonna have the idea behind it, or just find at least what you want to express. I have no time to model an enemy. We have no time to do any AI. Okay, well, you know what? Just put something there, square or character, just a placeholder, and then you're gonna need to explain. So that's an enemy, for example. I mean, there is no perfect solution. Not that you're gonna come with something with this time. It's just try to make it, at least, even if it's not working super well, at least the person who's gonna try your game is gonna understand what you're trying to do, what you're trying to say. And if it's like, okay, so we used to have dialogues and we used to have voiceover and we used to have everything, well, the narrative is gone because we're gonna have to do only the gameplay, or the gameplay is gone because we really want to focus on the narrative. But as it's a game jam, I will always give the priority to, as I say, the fun part and interactive part of the game rather than the rest. But I'm a level designer. I'm a technical person, so it's it's kind of easy for me to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if it helps, I would like to complement your response with saying that when you define the scope, define your core game loop, and define what it's like the minimum thing as we talked, uh, that uh, checks all that has to be done to have a core game loop like really close and really defined, and then build around it. And if this happens to make your game to feel like, oh, it's too big, the scope, we didn't imagine that this could be like super complex, cut corners, start cutting from least important to most important, and start cutting whatever you can cut. Do it. It's a jam. Nobody will uh, know that you have cut a content. Nobody will care about it. Like if you said, we didn't put forests, maybe you didn't need them because nobody took
Nobody
notes
will
of
know
that.
it was planned at the first time.
Yeah.
Just you will know.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty common even with released games. Like you say, oh, this game is amazing, and you are the developer of this game, and you internally are saying like, but we cut this and this didn't go well, and this breaks every time someone interacts with it. It's horrible, it's horrible, and people is like, this is the best game ever. Like they don't care. They will not be part of the process. They don't know anything that goes inside your project. So take advantage of that and start cutting whatever you can.
And the mentors are there for this too. Mentors are not only for I have a bug or I don't know how to do that, but it's also that's our scope. Do you think it's realistic?
Yeah.
And for sure they're gonna be able to help you with that.
And even if you have like your scope is too big during the second day, you can go to a mentor and say, hey, can you help us go through our scope and see if we can cut some things? Maybe they can help you. Maybe they cannot help you. It's like, dudes, I don't know. This is like super complicated, but they will have an answer for you. So please go with them and ask them. It's easier. They have experience. They are here because they have the experience to help you out. So don't hesitate to ask. Even if you feel like the question is way too dumb, it's like, if I ask this, they would think that I don't know anything and why am I here? It's a game jam. A
There
lot
is
of
no dumb
people,
question.
exactly, there are no dumb questions. A game jam is for people that have a lot of experience and people that are just starting to make video games. So please ask your mentors. They are here for this. We have another question. What happens if we don't have enough knowledge to use a programming platform?
So that's an interesting question, and I'm gonna share you about my first game jam experience when we all three programmed the same character and wouldn't be able to build the game. And that was my first game jam, and it was also the first time I will open Unity. And same will go with the two other person that build the character at the same time. None of us have ever used Unity until that day we decided to do a game jam. So it was pretty challenging because we were five-person and none of us had ever opened it. None of us had no idea how it worked. And that's why in our beautiful generation we have access to Google. Google is the answer to everything. And I'm not gonna say this just for game jams or whatever. Every day on my daily work, I go on Google maybe 10 times, 20 times per day to be like, how do I share this? How do I cut this? How do I do this mechanic? What is the best way to design this? In general, maybe 90% of the question you have, and talking about the game jam, which is simple mechanics, I will say 99% of the question you have should be explained easily somewhere on on Google, on YouTube. Then there is platforms that are different from one another. It's true, like if you want to start programming on Unreal, if you want to start Blueprint, but you never done Blueprint, or you want to just right away go on Unity into C Sharp, there's going to be a high learning curve. It doesn't mean it means that it's possible. It's just a high learning curve. It's just going to be a bit hard at the beginning, but slowly you're going to understand it, and then you're going to be able. Same during the game time, you're going to be able to make a character move. You're going to be able to make a character jump. You may be probably going to be able to do an enemy, just by learning right there. But then there's platforms that are even easier to use. You can, if you really want to enjoy in some specific aspect and you're not so comfortable, you can use RPG Maker. You can use Game Maker, which are 2D platforms, but everything is well explained, and so you can push a little bit the design with less knowledge of programming. But the thing too about programming is that if you have an experience, if you have just a simple experience doing something simple, even if it's web, everything that's related to programming is gonna be useful somehow. You're gonna see the same patterns. You're gonna see the same. Uh, you're gonna be able to recognize what you're doing. I don't know if this answered your questions or it was more on the specific aspects.
So what I would like to add to your response would be like if there are a lot of resources in Unity as a store that are free, like your character controller, you don't have to make it from scratch. You can grab it and you can modify it to your needs, and you can do a lot of stuff with free assets. So there are a lot of engines that are super friendly for people that have not coded at all, and there's Scratch. There is some. It was one called, if I'm not mistaken.
Construct? No.
No, it's another one. It was called. Let me.
CryEngine? No.
No, something with G. It was put in a
Sorry.
channel. It was called G Develop. It's programmation with blocks. So there are a lot of options out there. I've seen children making video games with, if you don't know how to use an artistic or software, 3D software or 2D software, you can make your own drawings in paper and then scan them and then cut them and then use them in your game. Like, you have to be creative with, I don't know, I don't know how to use this, but what do I know that can help me out in this situation? We had one question sent by Dacia, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's not here in the chat, but what are the tools that you recommend for brainstorming?
I personally really like to work with Miro because I don't know Figma yet. I heard Figma is like the new best place to work like this, but I really like to brainstorm on Miro because you can have sticky notes, you can have shapes, you can place pictures, you can place videos, links, texts, everything, and it's really easy to organize. Um, yeah, and one thing about the games, I don't know how this game jam works mainly, but I've seen during the game jam, global game jam, etc., a lot of people that love doing games, but they really don't have zero experience with computers in general, and they did a board game or they did a text-based game in web, which is still it's still a game. You know, you can make a game in Excel if you're creative. It's just about having rules and conditions that make it fun.
Oh, I was muted. That's super true. So, okay. Do we have any more questions in the chat? If you want, we have any another question or something that you would like to ask Alize, maybe regarding the jam, maybe not regarding the jam, doesn't matter. Please let us know. I would like to ask you one question, Alize, while we wait for people in the chat. What would be the thing that you learned most from game jams? What would be like something that you say, oh, if I didn't participate in game jams, this maybe I would have learned the way I did.
The reality is that everything technical, everything we made, the real game didn't matter at all. Honestly, because it's just a prototype at the end of the day, made by maybe inexperienced people. But I've learned so much about the reality on making a game, the reality of working with a team that we have different way of communicating, the reality and the stress that comes with it, and learn how to manage it. Learn how to not get overwhelmed because if it's your first time, even your second or your third, you're probably gonna feel overwhelmed, like you're not gonna be able to do it, nothing is going gonna well, you're not gonna be able to sleep. If it's your first game jam, you're probably not gonna be able to sleep the first night. But sleep is super important. But it's really everything that gives me more. It's a human experience. It's my soft, what I call my soft skills, which is really how to work together, communication. Just because you're under stress and everything has to go fast and it's complicated and you all doubt about everything you're doing. And that's when if you're able to keep your head cold and take problems and fix them, then you just learning so much about stress management.
Stress management, yeah,
Yeah.
very important. Like to not run in circles while everything is on fire. Like sit down, take a breath, go outside, look at it from a perspective, and say, okay, we can do this with this. So that's pretty important. Yeah. So if we don't have any more questions in the chat, I would like to start with our daily announcements before the game jam. So, okay, I'm gonna switch to Spanish. Yay. Pues chicos, chicas, todos los que estén ya listos para el Game Jam, mañana iniciamos el Game Jam. Es súper importante que revisen su correo, métanse al Discord, ya empezamos a confirmar y dar verificación a todos. Si no han entrado y no han puesto sus roles, si no han aceptado las reglas de convivencia, no van a poder acceder a los demás canales. Si no saben usar Discord, no se preocupen, una vez que entren a Discord con la invitación, en el primer canal donde dice, estamos verificando tus datos, abajito hay un pequeño tutorial que nuestra querida Diana preparó con mucho amor para todos ustedes. Si aún así tienen dudas, no se preocupen, pueden mandarnos un correíto y les ayudamos con mucho gusto. Y porfa, chequen sus Discords y sus correos, es súper importante, ya estamos cerquísimas de empezar mañana y es importante que todos estén dentro del Discord para que no se pierda de ningún detalle. Y pues, Alize, thank you for joining us today. Let me just thank you for joining us today. It was very enlightening. It was very fun to talk to you. I think we all learned a lot from your experiences. I don't know if you have something to say before we go.
No, well, thank you so much for inviting me. I really hope those advice or this way of doing production helps anyone. And if you have any more question, even if it's about production, level design, AAA, anything I can help you with, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, and I will gladly help you with anything.
Yep, and just like a quick reminder, she is in the Pixel Game Jam Discord. You can find her as Alize. Yeah, no, like
yeah, it will be like Alize.
Llama del Rey.
I'm gonna change to Alize because it has like my gamer type. I'm Llama del Rey. I'm sorry, but I will switch it.
Yeah. So you have any question? Please reach out to her. And thank you guys for being here and hearing this small talk. And have fun. And we'll see you tomorrow at Game Jam. It's gonna be fun and amazing, and we're super excited to see what your games are and what can you do with everything. So see ya. Bye bye. Thank you, Alize.
Bye. Thank you.
Pedazo de pis, ¿le viste? Señora, siempre.